In the late 1950s, China promised a revolution, a new world where hunger would be eliminated and peasants would rise. But behind the slogans and steel furnaces came silence, then starvation, then screams. The Great Leap Forward wasn't just a failed experiment, it became one of the deadliest events in human history. At its darkest moment, some people had no food left to eat, so they ate each other. This isn't legend, this isn't propaganda, this is what really happened in Mao's China. In 1958, Chairman Mao Zedong launched the Great Leap Forward. He believed China could transform from an agricultural society to an industrial superpower in just a few years. Villages were turned into communes. Private farming was abolished. People were forced to live, work, and eat collectively. Steel production became the national obsession. Peasants melted down their tools and cookware in backyard furnaces to create worthless lumps of metal. And while the government obsessed over production numbers, food was forgotten. Grain quotas were set impossibly high. Local officials lied about harvest yields to avoid punishment. On paper, China looked abundant. So Mao did the unthinkable. He exported grain overseas, while millions in his own country began to starve. This was not a natural famine. There was no drought, no war. This was a famine created by fear. Local leaders who reported low harvests risked being labeled traitors, so they inflated the numbers. The state demanded more grain, and more was taken. Peasants were left with nothing. In some provinces, entire villages were placed on blacklists. They were denied food, medicine, and aid. Some were starved as punishment for complaining. In Anhui province, families were reduced to eating tree bark, soil, and leather. In Henan, a commune lost over 80% of its population. Yet propaganda posters still showed smiling workers. The official slogan, 3 years of hardship for 1,000 years of happiness. When all food was gone, people turned to anything that looked like sustenance. Tree leaves, clay, insects, but even that ran out. In the darkest corners of the countryside, something unthinkable began to happen. Cannibalism. It started with the dead. Children who had died from starvation were boiled and eaten by desperate parents. Neighbors traded bodies. A grieving father might offer his child to another household, so neither would have to eat their own. In Guangxi province, official records later uncovered thousands of cases of cannibalism. Some of them involved murder. One woman in Gansu was executed for killing and eating her niece. Another man boiled his son, then fed him to neighbors. When asked why, he said simply, "He was already dead. What else could I do?" By 1962, the Great Leap Forward quietly ended, but by then, the damage was done. Historians estimate that between 30 to 45 million people died. The Chinese government never issued a formal apology. No memorials were built. The famine was blamed on natural causes. Witnesses were silenced, books were banned, speaking the truth could still get you punished decades later. Journalist Yang Jisheng spent years collecting first-hand accounts for his book, Tombstone. He wrote, "This was not a natural disaster, it was a man-made catastrophe." Some survivors never recovered. Children who lived through the famine became withdrawn adults. Others developed lifelong trauma around food. Some still refused to waste even a single grain of rice. In certain villages, the memories of what happened remain buried, unspoken, feared. The bones in the fields have long since disappeared, but the silence remains. The Great Leap Forward promised paradise. What it delivered was death. We remember this not just for the horror, but because it was preventable. It was hidden. And in many places, it still is. History only matters if we learn from it, and if we dare to speak the truth even when that truth is soaked in blood. Like and subscribe for more forgotten stories from history, the ones too dark to make the textbooks.